Wait, because something about this Papoose and Claressa Shields situation is not adding up. And if you only saw the headline floating around social media, you're missing the part that could completely change how people look at this story. Papoose has spent years building a reputation as the guy who doesn't need to explain himself every time the internet starts talking. But now, with Claressa Shields back in the spotlight and preparing for another major fight, his name is getting dragged into a completely different kind of battle. And here's where things get messy. Claims allegedly connected to someone in Claressa's family circle are now being pushed online. But before anybody runs with them as fact, there's a serious problem. Where is the proof? Because I went looking. And what's actually confirmed is already interesting enough. Claressa is preparing to face Case Scott on August 15th. Her career is moving forward. Her relationship with Papoose has already attracted massive attention. Yet suddenly, the conversation surrounding them is shifting away from boxing and toward what supposedly happened behind closed doors. Coincidence? Maybe. But then Papoose enters the conversation, and that is where you need to pay attention. Because sometimes what somebody refuses to address tells you almost as much as what they actually say. So what did Papoose really reveal? Who is making these claims? And why is this exploding right when Claressa has one of the biggest spotlights in boxing pointed directly at her? Stay with me, because the detail nobody is talking about may be the most important part of this entire story. Now here's where this story gets a whole lot more interesting. Because if you've been following Claressa Shields and Papoose for more than 5 minutes, you already know their relationship didn't enter the public conversation quietly. It arrived with history attached to it, opinions surrounding it, and enough internet speculation to keep social media arguing for days. But underneath all that noise is something people keep forgetting. There's a major difference between what the internet believes happened and what the people actually involved have publicly confirmed. And right now, that difference matters more than ever. Because Papoose is not somebody who built his reputation by explaining every rumor attached to his name. For years, fans watched him move through hip-hop with a certain kind of discipline. He could respond when he wanted to, stay silent when he wanted to, and somehow that silence would make people talk even louder. That's exactly why every statement connected to him gets examined like somebody just dropped a missing piece of evidence on the table. People don't simply hear what Papoose says anymore. They immediately start asking what made him say it now. Then you have Claressa Shields, and her situation is completely different. Claressa has never needed anybody else's spotlight. She's an elite boxer, an Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most accomplished fighters of her generation. Her personality is just as direct as her fighting style. She speaks confidently, she responds publicly, and when she believes people are playing with her name, she usually doesn't act like she's scared of confrontation. Put someone that outspoken next to somebody as calculated as Papoose, and suddenly every public moment between them becomes something audiences want to decode. But this is where we need to separate the smoke from the actual fire. There are claims being circulated online involving someone described as connected to Claressa's family. And whenever the words family member or cousin get attached to celebrity drama, people immediately assume that person must know everything happening behind closed doors. That assumption can turn an unverified claim into breaking news before anybody bothers asking the most basic question: who actually confirmed it? That question changes everything. Because as of now, the dramatic cousin narrative should not be treated like established fact without credible evidence identifying the person and confirming exactly what was said. And believe me, that doesn't make this story less interesting. It makes it more interesting because now you have to ask why people are so eager to believe the most explosive version before the receipts even arrive. And that brings us back to Papoose. His relationship with Claressa has already faced enormous public scrutiny, especially because of the history surrounding his marriage to Remy Ma. Once those worlds collided publicly, fans started choosing sides almost immediately. Every interview became evidence. Every post became a clue. Every photograph became another reason for somebody online to announce that they had supposedly figured everything out. But celebrity stories rarely work that cleanly. What you see publicly is usually only a fraction of what happened privately. And when multiple people have history together, one sentence can carry years of context the audience never witnessed. That's why Papoose speaking about Claressa, relationships, or the controversy surrounding his personal life attracts so much attention. It isn't just about the sentence coming out of his mouth. It's about everything audiences believe is sitting behind that sentence. Meanwhile, Claressa has something much bigger happening professionally. She is scheduled to face Australian boxer Kay Scott on August 15, 2026, putting the focus back where Claressa has always been most dangerous, inside a boxing ring. And the timing creates an unexpected contrast. While she should be entering another major chapter of her fighting career, conversations about her personal life keep competing with conversations about her actual accomplishments. Think about that for a second. You're preparing to fight, your name is already attracting headlines, and suddenly audiences are being told there may be another dramatic revelation coming from somebody supposedly close to your family. That is exactly how internet narratives explode. One claim becomes 10 videos. 10 videos become hundreds of posts. Then somebody reacts to somebody else's reaction, and before long, viewers can't remember where the original information even came from. But we're not doing that here. Because the real story isn't whatever sounds the craziest. The real story is figuring out what Papoose actually said, what Claressa has actually confirmed, and whether this mysterious family claim has evidence behind it at all. And once you start following that trail, things get uncomfortable very quickly, because another familiar name enters the conversation, and suddenly the timeline everyone thought they understood doesn't look nearly as simple anymore. And that familiar name is Remy Ma. Because you cannot understand why this story became so explosive without understanding the history surrounding Papoose's previous relationship. For years, Papoose and Remy Ma were viewed publicly as one of hip-hop's most recognizable couples. Their relationship survived circumstances that would have destroyed plenty of marriages, and Papoose earned enormous public respect for standing beside Remy during difficult years. That image became attached to him. He wasn't simply Papoose the rapper anymore. To millions of people watching from the outside, he represented loyalty. That history is exactly why the public reaction became so intense when Papoose and Claressa Shields started appearing together. People weren't looking at a brand new celebrity romance with no baggage attached. They were comparing everything they saw with an image they had carried for years. And that creates a dangerous situation online, because once audiences believe they know somebody personally, they start filling gaps in the timeline themselves. But timelines matter here. Public statements, social media exchanges, interviews, and appearances have fueled conversation around Papoose, Remy, and Claressa. Yet a viral post can make several different events look like they happened simultaneously when they didn't. That's where viewers need to be careful. If somebody shows you an old clip beside a new headline and never tells you when either one happened, you can walk away believing you just witnessed evidence of something that the clip never proved. And now add this alleged family angle. Suddenly, the story becomes irresistible to gossip pages because it contains every ingredient the internet loves. A famous rapper, a champion boxer, an ex-wife, relationship drama, and somebody supposedly connected to the family claiming to know what really happened. That sounds explosive. But sounding explosive and being verified are two completely different things. So before anyone tells you Claressa's cousin exposed something, ask for the name. Ask for the original interview. Ask for the complete statement. Ask when it was made. Most importantly, ask whether the person's relationship to Claressa has actually been established. Those questions aren't boring. They are exactly how you separate an authentic revelation from somebody attaching a dramatic headline to recycled footage. And Papoose knows how this game works. He has been around hip-hop media long enough to understand that one sentence can become 20 headlines before breakfast. That makes his public comments especially interesting, because when he chooses his words carefully, viewers immediately start searching between the lines. But there's another possibility nobody likes discussing because it isn't as dramatic. Sometimes a person means exactly what they said. No secret code. No hidden confession. No mysterious message aimed at an ex. That possibility rarely goes viral. Drama does. And Claressa understands attention too. Boxing is built around attention. Fighters sell rivalries, confidence, personalities, and stories before they ever enter the ring. Claressa has never hidden her confidence, and she has never needed permission to call herself great. Her record and championships give her plenty of reasons to speak boldly. That's why reducing her entire public identity to who she is dating misses something enormous. She was famous before this relationship. She was winning championships before this relationship. And she will be stepping into another major fight with, or without internet gossip surrounding her name. But there's still a question hanging over everything. Why does every new relationship update involving Papoose and Claressa immediately pull Remy Ma back into the conversation? Because audiences never receive the neat ending they wanted. Celebrity relationships are treated like television shows now. Viewers expect a finale where everybody explains exactly what happened, who did what first, who was wrong, and who moved on. Real relationships don't always provide that ending. Sometimes people tell conflicting versions. Sometimes private details stay private. Sometimes both sides move forward while strangers continue arguing about a timeline they were never personally involved in. And that appears to be where much of this fascination comes from. People aren't merely watching Papoose and Claressa. They're waiting for somebody to deliver the missing chapter. That's why an alleged cousin suddenly becomes important. If viewers believe somebody from inside the family is finally talking, they expect that person to provide the answer everyone else supposedly avoided. But until there is verifiable evidence, that expectation should remain exactly what it is. An expectation, not a fact. Because the biggest twist may not be some devastating family secret at all. The bigger story could be how quickly an unverified claim can travel once famous names are attached to it. And there's one detail in the timeline that makes that possibility impossible to ignore, because when you look at what Papoose and Claressa themselves have actually put into the public record, the story being pushed online starts looking very different. And this is where you have to watch the timeline instead of the headlines, because the public record tells a more complicated story than the viral version. Papoose and Claressa Shields haven't exactly behaved like two people desperately trying to hide their connection. Their relationship became public, they appeared together, and Claressa openly discussed Papoose in interviews. So when a new headline suddenly suggests there is some enormous hidden revelation waiting to destroy everything, the first question shouldn't be, how shocking is this? The first question should be, what exactly is new here? That sounds simple, but it's where celebrity coverage gets tricky. A clip can be months old and suddenly explode again because somebody gives it a new title. An interview can be chopped down until one sentence sounds completely different without the question that came before it. Even a reaction can be repackaged as a confession. And once enough accounts repeat the same interpretation, people stop saying allegedly and start talking like they personally witnessed the event. That is why Papoose supposedly breaking his silence needs context. Breaking his silence about what exactly? His relationship with Claressa? His history with Remy Ma? A specific accusation? Or simply the broader attention surrounding his personal life? Those distinctions matter because they determine whether viewers are actually getting new information or watching an old conversation dressed up like breaking news. And right now, that distinction becomes even more important when an alleged relative is being introduced into the narrative. Because think about what the word cousin does to your brain. Immediately it sounds close. Sounds personal. It sounds like somebody who might have access to conversations the public never heard. But families can be enormous. Two cousins can speak every day, or they can barely know each other. Simply attaching a family label to someone doesn't automatically prove that person has first-hand knowledge of a celebrity's private relationship. Before treating any supposed insider as credible, you need to know who that person is, what their actual connection is, and whether their statements can be independently verified. Without that, you don't have an exposé. You have a claim. And there's a massive difference. Meanwhile, Papoose has another reason to be careful with his words. Anything he says can immediately be interpreted through the Remy Ma storyline. If he talks about loyalty, people connect it to Remy. If he talks about happiness, people connect it to Claressa. If he talks about moving forward, somebody will claim he secretly threw shade at his past. Imagine living in that kind of commentary machine. You could say you enjoyed breakfast and somebody would upload a 20-minute video explaining why the pancakes were secretly disrespectful. That sounds ridiculous, but celebrity social media can genuinely operate that way. Claressa has dealt with something similar. Her confidence gets analyzed differently depending on who is listening. Boxing fans might hear a champion promoting herself. Celebrity gossip audiences might hear somebody throwing shots at another woman. The exact same sentence can become two completely different stories depending on which audience receives it. And that is why context is everything here. There's also something else happening that deserves more attention than it gets. Claressa's actual career hasn't stopped while the internet debates her relationship. She remains one of boxing's biggest female stars, And every new fight creates another opportunity for her to expand what she has already accomplished. That's the strange contradiction surrounding this entire situation. The more successful Claressa becomes, the more attention follows her. The more attention follows her, the more valuable any story involving her personal life becomes. And the more valuable those stories become, the greater the incentive for somebody online to package ordinary information as an extraordinary revelation. Now bring Papoose into that equation. His name gives the story crossover appeal beyond boxing. Remy Ma's name brings hip-hop audiences into it. Add an alleged family insider, and suddenly you've created a headline capable of reaching 3 different audiences at once. That doesn't prove the claims are false, but it absolutely means they deserve scrutiny. And here is where things become even more revealing. When you strip away the dramatic thumbnails, reaction videos, anonymous commentary, and recycled clips, you're left with a surprisingly short list of things that can actually be confirmed. That gap between what is confirmed and what is being implied is where this entire story lives. Because somebody benefits when viewers don't notice that gap. The question is who? Is this simply social media doing what social media always does, turning relationship drama into entertainment? Is someone genuinely connected to the situation preparing to provide evidence? Or are audiences being encouraged to believe there is a bombshell before the bombshell even exists? Keep that question in your head. Because once you examine how this alleged revelation began circulating and compare it with what Claressa herself has publicly said, one contradiction jumps out immediately. And that contradiction might tell us more than the rumor ever could. And that contradiction becomes obvious when you compare the way Claressa Shields has spoken publicly with the way this supposed secret is being marketed online. Claressa has never presented herself like somebody terrified of people knowing she is with Papoose. Quite the opposite. She has spoken about him publicly, appeared alongside him, and allowed their relationship to become something audiences could openly discuss. So if somebody is promising a massive revelation about the simple fact that these two are together, that isn't exactly a revelation anymore. Everybody already knows, which means the alleged bombshell would need to be something else. And this is where people start getting themselves into trouble. Because when information is missing, the internet fills in the blanks. Somebody posts a vague headline. Another account adds a theory. A reaction channel repeats the theory but removes the word maybe. Then another page sees that video and reports the theory like somebody confirmed it. Within hours, speculation has completed an entire transformation into what looks like news. But nobody ever found the original receipt. That's why the alleged cousin angle matters so much. If someone genuinely connected to Claressa has made serious claims, there should be an original source somewhere. There should be a name, a statement, an interview, a video, or something audiences can examine without depending on somebody else's interpretation. Until that appears, skepticism isn't disrespect. It's common sense. Now here's where Papoose becomes especially important. His public image was built long before Claressa entered the picture. Fans remember his relationship with Remy Ma, his loyalty during difficult circumstances, and the way their marriage became almost inseparable from his celebrity identity. So when that marriage unraveled publicly, people didn't react like they were watching strangers break up. They reacted like something they had invested in emotionally had collapsed. That explains why some people still refuse to look at Papoose and Claressa without seeing Remy standing somewhere in the background. But Papoose appears to be moving forward. Claressa appears to be moving forward. And Remy has her own life and career. The internet, however, has a much harder time moving forward because unresolved drama generates attention. A peaceful ending gives you one headline. An ongoing feud can give you content for months. And that incentive changes how stories get framed. Notice how often celebrity headlines use phrases like finally admits, breaks silence, exposes everything, or reveals the truth. Those words create the feeling that you're about to receive information somebody desperately tried to hide. Sometimes that's accurate. Other times, the person simply answered a question during an interview and somebody turned the answer into a cinematic event. That's why you should listen closely to Papoose's actual words whenever they're available instead of accepting somebody else's summary. Because tone matters, context matters, timing matters, and what somebody doesn't say can be interesting, but it cannot automatically be treated as proof of whatever theory audiences already believe. That distinction is crucial. If Papoose doesn't respond to a rumor, silence doesn't prove the rumor. If Claressa laughs at speculation, that doesn't automatically confirm it either. And if Remy posts something cryptic, that doesn't mean every sentence is secretly directed toward them. Sometimes people are simply living their lives while millions of strangers build narratives around them. But don't mistake caution for saying there's nothing worth watching here. There absolutely is. Because the public dynamic surrounding these three names has already produced enough documented tension to explain why audiences are paying attention. You don't need to manufacture another secret to make the situation compelling. The history itself is complicated enough. And there's another layer people keep overlooking. Claressa isn't entering this conversation from the entertainment industry. She comes from professional boxing, where public confidence is almost a requirement. Fighters tell you they're the best. They challenge rivals. They promote themselves aggressively because attention can translate directly into bigger opportunities. So when Claressa brings that same energy into celebrity culture, some viewers interpret it differently. What sounds completely normal before a boxing match can sound confrontational on a gossip page. And that difference matters because Claressa's words can travel far beyond boxing audiences now. Once Papoose became connected to her publicly, everything expanded. Hip-hop blogs started watching. Celebrity channels started watching. Relationship commentators started watching. And suddenly a champion boxer's personal life became content for audiences who may have never watched one of her fights. That creates the perfect environment for rumors to outrun facts. But there's one thing rumors eventually have to confront: evidence. And when you follow the evidence instead of the loudest headline, another question emerges. If this alleged family revelation is truly as devastating as people are suggesting, why hasn't the supposed original statement become the biggest piece of the story? Why are people discussing reactions more than the actual source? That is the detail you should remember. Because the closer you look at where the noise is coming from, the more it appears that the biggest revelation might not be about Papoose or Claressa at all. It might be about how the story itself was created. Now I want to hear from you, because this is where your opinion matters. After everything we just walked through, do you think Papoose is deliberately choosing his words because there's more happening behind the scenes? Or has the internet taken a complicated relationship story and turned it into something much bigger than the evidence actually supports? And what about these alleged claims supposedly coming from someone connected to Claressa Shields' family? Do you believe there's a real bombshell still waiting to surface? Or are people running with a headline before anybody has produced the original receipts? Drop your take in the comments because I already know people are going to be divided on this one. But before you leave, remember something important. With stories like this, the loudest headline isn't always the biggest revelation. Sometimes the detail everyone skips is exactly where the truth gets interesting. So if you want the updates people miss, the timelines that don't add up, and the details getting buried underneath all that social media noise, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because if Papoose, Claressa Shields, Remy Ma, or anyone genuinely connected to this situation comes forward with something verifiable, you already know we're going straight to the source and breaking down what was actually said. No recycled rumors. No pretending speculation as proof. And trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Until then, tell me this. Who do you believe is being misunderstood the most in this entire situation, Papoose, Claressa, or Remy? I'll see you in the next one.